left you in Johannesburg, where we spent a day in Soweto, learned lots about the South African culture, visited museums and went caving.
In this video, we drive from Johannesburg to Hoedspruit, where we get our hearts racing when we get very close and personal with several wild animals.
The travel to Hoedspruit was really beautiful. We went through amazing countryside, over some breathtaking mountains and saw numerous villages.
What was also noticeable was that even though we were no longer in Johannesburg, the farms were all protected by barbed wire and electric fences.
When we arrived at the Hoedspruit Endangered Species Centre, we were offered complimentary drinks as our accommodation was not ready. Actually, it was ready, until the baboons got into it and apparently made a mess.
Once we got the thumbs up to go to our accommodation, I found it a tad surprising that we had to have a ranger escort us as we drove away from the main reception and restaurant.
It was not long before we got to the boundary of the centre and we were taken into a fenced area surrounded by game reserves and their wild animals.
The ranger told us that during the daylight hours we could come and go as we please, but still to be quick when getting in and out of the vehicle to open the gate.
Once out of the car, we were all very excited to see that we were going to be staying in a treehouse.
Especially when we saw the open lounge that looked out into 3 different wildlife areas.
Upstairs there were 2 very similar bedrooms. Each had a double and a single bed, and their own ensuite.
Downstairs, there was also another bedroom with their own ensuite.
In the true spirit of a treehouse, we also had an open kitchen.
And the extra bonus was that there was no electricity whatsoever. So our fridge and stove were dependent on a gas bottle, and if we needed help, we had to use a 2-way radio that relied on a solar charged battery.
In terms of cooking, we were also introduced to a boma. This is a wooden fortress that was traditionally used to enclose and protect domestic animals. However, especially in modern times, you find them equipped with a fire pit and a hot plate used to cook a braai, or barbie in Australia. Whilst fending off local hungry fauna, Callum cooked us an amazing braai. And later on, we also cooked delicious marshmallows and s'mores.
At the start, as there was no electricity, we all entertained ourselves as we usually would back home when we aren't allowed on electronic devices.
However, very quickly we were all excited by the possibility of seeing some wild animals, and we started scanning the surrounding area with our binoculars.
It was not long before we spotted our first pumbaa, or warthog.
On the first night, whilst Karcher and Callum were introducing Mum and Dad to African sundowners, armed with 2 small cameras, us kids decided to take an evening stroll around the perimeter.
As it was getting dark, it was difficult to make out shapes.
Then, we started hearing movement on the other side of the fence and quickly moved closer.
I was the first one to see it. Initially, it was slowly circling, but then it started to move our way.
Were we scared? No. In fact, we were very excited to have seen our first cheetah, even if it was in the dark.
And just like that, it was gone.
When it came to fear, that came a little later, as we were again walking around in the dark.
In the morning, after a quick brief, we went to see 4 cheetahs that were being prepared to be released into the wild.
We're now going to do a cheetah run.
Over many years, the centre has been breeding cheetahs and training them for the wild. This is because their numbers were getting really low.
As much as they looked beautiful and the rangers were moving around them as if they were domesticated cats, in a split second we had a turn of events.
The alpha cheetah decided to target one of the rangers. 2 other cheetahs immediately aligned themselves with their leader. Fortunately, the ranger yelled at the alpha, who after a few seconds of hesitation, decided not to attack and walked away. It was quite scary.
It goes to show that as much as they look very cuddly, they are wild animals that in a second can become deadly.
On that drive, we were also taken to see other animals that had been rescued.
These are white rhinos. They are currently hunted for their horn because some people believe that it possesses special healing powers. The reality is that their horn is made up of 100% keratin, the same material as our fingernails and hair, nothing more.
It is amazing that there are people in the world who are so dumb that they are eating nothing more than fingernails. Unfortunately, their ignorance has created a market that has resulted in the rhino very quickly heading towards extinction.
To protect these 3 from poachers, by the time you will see this video, the centre will have cut back their horns, thus keeping them safe.
On the drive, we also saw 2 young male lions. These were the ones that on the previous evening were roaring in the middle of the night.
On our last day in Hoedspruit, we went to visit a place called Elephant Whispers. This was a surprise organised by Callum, so we did not know what to expect.
When we arrived, we were given a safety brief and the history of the elephants that live here.
The place was very beautiful. It had boardwalks right through a forest, with creeks running under and next to the boardwalks.
This is where they sleep at night.
The experience began with a presentation about the anatomy of elephants and their living habits. Before we knew it, 2 elephants arrived and were ready to meet us.
The elephants were apparently rescued from Zimbabwe.
At first, the elephant handlers were showing us some tricks whilst continuing to tell us about the 2 elephants.
However, it wasn't long before they invited a few of us at a time to come to the elephants and learn more about them, like how spongy their heels were, how warm their ears were, and how leathery their skin felt.
I was really surprised as to how warm the back of their ears were. Apparently, this is because they have big veins that carry warm blood to be cooled. That is why elephants are regularly flapping their ears, to use the air movement to cool down the blood before it travels back within the body.
We then did a mixture of activities where we would treat the elephant, and in return, we would be allowed to take photos with them.
The elephants were not the only ones that received treats. Both mums were lucky enough to find out what an elephant kiss felt like. When Dad was asked to have a turn, he said that the mums' expressions were a great reason for him to stick to his filming role.
I loved that I was able to pat them.
My favourite bit was brushing him, like I do with horses back in Australia.
A little while, we also had a turn taking the elephant for a walk. Basically, you held your hand behind you whilst walking, and the elephant used the end of its trunk to hold your hand.
As you can see in some of the videos, it was also raining the whole time. So, sorry if some of the photos and videos are a bit smudged. Dad had a hard time keeping the lenses protected.
And after feeding the elephants lots of treats, it was time for them to be taken back to the shelter for proper food.
The whole experience was simply amazing. Thank you Kartra and Callum for organising it. We loved it.
Bye bye Hoedspruit.
Bye bye Treehouse.